About a few months ago on my birthday, my dad got me this book for my birthday as a gift. It's called Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez, and it was about how Robert Rodriguez made his first feature film, with only $7,000 and just like a low budget overall, and he made it in his 20s and like when he was like 23 or 24 or whatever. And this was all done in like the 90s and stuff, so this is when filmmaking was very rare. You would see like low budget stuff. Everything was still done with like Hollywood. YouTube wasn't a thing, the internet wasn't a thing, so making movies was a rare occurrence for some people. And the reason why this was such a special gift to me is because throughout this year in 2024 I've been making movies on this YouTube channel, making short films. I tried doing a feature, it kind of failed, but reading this book I really related to Robert Rodriguez, as he kind of made his way in his journey, spending like 1 or 2 years making one movie itself, just like the struggles, the trials and tribulations of just making any sort of big project. There's a lot of steps involved. I remember in the beginning of the book he did talk about how he did like end up being like a lab rat just to raise money for like the film, like doing like these crazy like scientist tests for like pills and shit, just like crazy things like he did for money, and to just raise just even a little bit, just like $7,000 in the 90s, which isn't like crazy at all. It's not no big budget at all, but just the steps that he took to get that budget is kind of insane. But overall, sometimes on YouTube I like to talk about some books I read because I like reading books. Recently I've been reading a lot of filmmaking books. Side note, I don't really like a lot of filmmaking books just because a lot of the tips and stuff that come through this is really just like organic, like just basic stuff that you would find anywhere, like stuff I talk about on YouTube already, stuff I already know. And it just seems like a waste of time just going through a book and just explaining like how to make a low budget movie, this and that. This book isn't really like this. This is more of like a journal book. This is more of like him kind of documenting everything. This is kind of like a diary, but for me it was an interesting read because it was him each day of filming and like what he was going through. So the movie he was making in this book is called El Mariachi, and El Mariachi is like low budget movie. It actually became pretty popular, which we'll talk about later on in the video, but halfway through the book I decided to give it a watch. I think this is when the hurricanes were happening, so I decided to watch it on my iPhone. I rented it, and I watched it on like YouTube or whatever. Obviously, you could tell right away that it's very low budget, and obviously it's nothing crazy. The camera in itself is lower quality than like other Hollywood movies. Duh, it's made in the 90s with $7,000. You can't really ask for much, but I think just like the overall scope of everything, him and like the characters in like the small town, they're running around with guns, just like how they shot everything in the small town. They went out in the middle of Mexico and they found a really small town, middle of nowhere or whatever, and they decided to make the movie there. And this was so this is so awesome for them because it allowed them for that freedom of filming in the streets without getting like the cops involved or whatever, with guns especially. Like they're doing like these massive chase scenes in like in the market or whatever, and they can get away with so much because they're in a small town with like under like 100 people living there. I find that so interesting because like I feel like I could do that now. Like if I go to like Mexico, I can copycat what Robert Rodriguez did. I live like in the middle of Tampa, so this is like kind of I can't get away with much down here, filming guns and shit. It's already hard enough filming with like Nerf guns freaking in the weekend, just trying to find like secluded locations for that. But anyways, just like the freedom that they had with it is so it was so awesome because it allowed them to make a low budget movie that looked more expensive because they had more to show. Like they had a ranch, some of the friends had or whatever, different locations, lots of like extras and actors involved. That's also something that they got away with. They were able to bring on people around the town just because making the movie there was such a big deal in their town. They're like, oh shit, like we're making a movie, like everyone's invited. Everyone's like, oh shit, like the hotel guy from the movie, he was the hotel guy like in real life. He wanted to be in the movie. He's like, oh hey, is there a part for me? The bartender, like, oh shit, like I would be involved. Like that's so awesome. Like everyone in the town got like a piece of the pie, a piece in the movie, like as they were filming it. And just like the overall movie was just so energetic. I really love like the editing and stuff. On this camera shaking a little bit. I really love just like the editing, because Robert Rodriguez, how he edited the movie is kind of insane, because it's sometimes even better than editing I see today, because he filmed and edited this entire thing. So I think for this one and a few other projects he did after this, he directed it. He was a director of photography, and he edited it. So he had full freedom over every single shot, action piece, and how it overall looked. And for a director to have that freedom is very awesome. And he didn't have anything holding him back. He didn't have other people to, go back and forth with. It was just really him just being the crew and, the actors, which is very freeing. When you're being a filmmaker, you're not like relying on other people's opinions. And, that is all right, don't get me wrong or anything, but just filmmaking by yourself with a few other people, you being the director, and this is for me also. When I made my short films with friends, I was the director, I was everything, and my friends were just along for the ride. And that seems like what Robert Rodriguez did here. So after he made this movie, he goes on talking about how he was trying to get it distributed. It was this huge back and forth ordeal, and this is like the biggest problem that I really don't like with Hollywood, is like just like the money aspect and the business aspect. I think Robert Rodriguez did choose the correct path in his filmmaking career, but just seeing the struggles, and he spent like a year flying back and forth from LA to Texas and stuff, and it just seems like a big hassle. He went on like so many meetings just trying to get the film sold and stuff, but eventually it landed in his favor, because he landed a deal with the Columbia Pictures, I believe, and the movie got released worldwide in theaters, and it made, I think, over like $2 million in the theater on a $7,000 budget. So he made bank with that movie. I don't know what the deal was, but like him and the studio made a lot of money. Well, not like a whole lot of money, but compared to the budget, yes, it was. So overall, like that movie in the 90s became a huge success, and it led onto two other feature films. Desperado, starring Antonio Banderas, a few other famous actors and stuff, and then the third one, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, starring Johnny Depp, him also, Antonio Banderas, and so many other, like Willem Dafoe. There were like so many famous actors in the sequels. It's kind of crazy. And the craziest thing about this whole thing is because this is literally like the Hollywood dream. This is what every filmmaker kind of dreams of. Like they're making their low budget movie, their feature film or whatever, and it kind of blows up. They get a lot of money, and it becomes a success, and they become a director in Hollywood. And after this, Robert Rodriguez has made movies. He still makes movies. He's made the Spy Kids movies. He's done a lot. He's done a few episodes of The Mandalorian. He has genuinely like made it, and that's really awesome, because it was just this one project that took him to the moon. But it wasn't luck, because it was a lot of hard work for him. I think there's no such thing as luck in film. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, you gotta get lucky to get your film seen, or like if you post on YouTube, you're lucky to get like 1 million views or whatever. It really just comes down to hard work and the reps. I think Robert Rodriguez is, similar to me, where he's been doing this for years. Like, even, when he was a kid, filming stuff by himself, doing like stop motion stuff. That's what I did. And I think I really like this book because I relate so much to Robert Rodriguez in his early years. And then me right now making short films and feature films on YouTube and stuff. This is something that I really relate to in like his early stages of life. And in this journal, in his book, he does kind of say about like his future Hollywood dreams and stuff. And this is like when before he's making El Mariachi, he's kind of documenting like, oh, I want to make El Mariachi, then I'll do a few sequels and stuff. The funny thing is, like, he manifested that, but it ended up way bigger than expected. So with the whole thing with the Mexico Trilogy is really like a miracle, and it's really like I said before, not like a miracle, but like it's just amazing that it happened, because it really just comes down to hard work, dedication. So after I finished the book, I decided to watch all of the Mariachi movies, and it's kind of interesting because in the El Mariachi, the first one, they had like nobody actors. They had like people they found on the street and stuff, but the main character was kind of an actor. He didn't speak English and whatever. The first movie is actually Spanish, and then they dubbed it to English. So, but the other two movies are in English because those are American films. But I found it interesting that they recasted the El Mariachi as Antonio Banderas, and how they kind of made it through the story. Each sequel, you know, was kind of a continuation of the last one. I was kind of surprised that they recasted that, but the way, like for a good example, like in Desperado, the second one, where in the beginning they do have that flashback to El Mariachi, and they kind of refilm the same scene from the ending where, you know, the girl gets killed and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting how they did that. Just a few other things, and to be honest, the whole trilogy in itself was really, really fun. I really loved like the action. They had great actors, great acting. I wouldn't say the movies are great by any means, but I thought it was a really fun time just watching it. You know, his movies are free on like, you know, I don't even know what you call it, like Tubi, Pluto, and like all that shit on like Amazon Prime and shit. But I found the overall trilogy to be really fun, and how it connected to each one before of the film franchise was kind of interesting to see. I think the most interesting thing about this whole Mexico trilogy is that it really just started with a kid in his 20s with $7,000. This was a kid who had, you know, no connections, nobody, and, you know, just went out to the middle of nowhere and just filmed the movie. And that's really inspiring for any filmmaker, really. It's kind of like the Quentin Tarantino story, you know, where he like worked at, you know, like Blockbuster or some shit for like 20 years, and then ended up making some films, and then you know, getting pretty popular. It's odd because they both blew up in like the same decade, and I think they are pretty close friends and stuff, because Quentin Tarantino, I think he's in Desperado, but just that whole the whole generation of filmmaking in the 90s was really special. I think we're seeing a new wave now where we're seeing like YouTube filmmakers like Joel Haver, or $5 School, a few other people on YouTube who are making like lower budget movies with like no money at all, and just kind of having the small network and stuff. I think that's really fun. But really, it just shows that, you know, if you have a little bit of money, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of talent and dedication, you can really make it. You can really make something really unique. And even if it doesn't blow up, even if it doesn't get, you know, the success you want, it's still gonna be good. You know, I think if El Mariachi did not blow up, and, you know, if I stumbled upon it on YouTube today, I would say, hey, this is still really good. Like, I really like it. You know, just the energy, just the editing, just the funness of everything is still there, and that's what you want in the movie, just to have it fun, entertaining, and to really just give it a good time. And I think if you can accomplish that as a filmmaker, you can really just make it in film today. Robert Rodriguez, when he made that movie, obviously his plan was to move up in Hollywood. Like, would he still make $7,000 movies even after it blew up? And no, like, he would continue to grow and, you know, have bigger budgets. I think El Mariachi, like I said before, 7,000. His next one was 7 million for the budget. So he's not going to stay in the same places before. He's going to keep moving up that ladder. And I'm kind of the same way. Like, I started with the iPhone movies and stuff, and now I'm making my way up to the second step, which is like with the budget, with some actors and some crew. And I'm having good times so far. I'm really looking forward to it. Here's to Rebel Without a Crew. Give it a read if you haven't already. I think it's a great book. And Robert Rodriguez is the GOAT, man. What can I say?